Welcome to the Masterkast. I'm Gavin.
I'm Alex.
I'm Bobby.
I'm Carla.
I'm Catherine.
Today we're talking about Meta's new DEI changes. Meta has long positioned itself as a leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion, investing in programs to build a more inclusive workspace. But recently, the company has announced a shift in its DEI policies, scaling back initiatives and restructuring its approach. What's behind this change? How does it impact employees, the tech industry, and the broader conversation around corporate responsibility? In today's episode, we will break down Meta's new direction, what it means for the future of workplace diversity, and whether this marks a turning point for DEI in big tech. Now, Bobby, can you tell us about Meta's prior DEI policies?
Yeah, totally. So Meta launched a notable 15-5 initiative in 2019. The goal of this initiative was to double the number of Black and Hispanic employees in the US, as well as double the number of women in the global workforce by 2024. Meta was actually able to achieve this 2 years early. Though they climbed up the ladder with its DEI efforts, by late 2023, things started to change. And not just within Meta, but within many other companies. Catherine, do you want to take this over?
Of course. While companies like Meta have invested significant time and effort in emphasizing their commitment to DEI, recent events have halted this progress. Earlier this year, President Donald Trump signed an order banning DEI programs across the federal government, changing how civil rights laws are applied and impacting equal opportunity policies in employment, promotions, and education. For decades, federal policies have promoted equal opportunity, rooted in 1960s civil rights laws that expanded to prevent discrimination based on protected characteristics. Trump's orders reversed these policies that help dismantle segregation in high-paying industries, limiting opportunities for historically excluded groups. In the workforce, these orders aim to pressure employers into abandoning DEI initiatives. Alex, how are these changes affecting Meta?
At Meta, the impact of these orders is evident, as they have significantly influenced the company and led to notable DEI changes. These changes include stopping the use of the diverse slate approach, ending representation goals for women and ethnic minorities, lowering supplier diversity efforts, and focusing on how to apply fair and consistent practices and mitigate bias for all, no matter one's background. Parla, what exactly did they change?
Sure, let's go a little further in depth. Since January 2025, Meta has announced that it'll be scaling back its DEI programs pertaining to areas like hiring, training, and supplier selection. This constitutes cutting the company's DEI team, ending their general inclusion programs, rolling back their goals to source suppliers from diversity-owned businesses, and terminating their diverse slate hiring approach. To clarify, diverse slate hiring is a hiring strategy where recruiters intentionally create a diverse pool of candidates in order to hire people of varied backgrounds, experiences, and talents. A lot of this responsibility falls onto the human resources team. Janelle Gale, Meta's Vice President of Human Resources, has said that their decisions are due to the fact that, quote, legal and policy landscape surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the United States is changing. An example of these policy changes at work within Meta is its former President of Global Affairs, Nick Clegg. Gavin, tell us about him.
Of course. Sir Nick Clegg, the UK's former Deputy Prime Minister, was elected to Parliament as part of the Liberal Democrats Party. He was first hired at Meta in 2018 and became Meta's President of Global Affairs in 2022. However, in January of 2025, he was replaced by Joel Kaplan, a prominent Republican and Trump ally. This coincided with CEO Mark Zuckerberg's $1 million donation to Trump's inauguration. According to some, Nick Clegg's departure from Meta can be seen as a representation of the political reins being handed over in the White House. Kaplan, on the other hand, previously served as Deputy Chief of Staff to President George Bush and has had some controversial political history, which leads us to believe his appointment won't be too popular. Catherine, tell us more.
Additionally, Meta has also stepped away from pursuing representation goals for women and ethnic minorities, claiming that they aim to eliminate any impression that decisions are being made based on race or gender. As for their supplier selection, Meta is shifting their focus to small and medium-sized businesses instead of diversely owned suppliers, while maintaining their claim that opportunity will be available to all qualified businesses. Overall, Meta has reevaluated their policies to reduce bias regardless of background and focus on accessibility and engagement instead of DEI. Alex, what does the future look like for Meta?
Well, according to Forbes, despite what you might think, DEI in general is actually forecasted to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 12% according to PR Newswire, primarily through employee resource groups and partnerships. Employee resource groups, or known as ERGs, are safe havens for people from historically marginalized groups to empathize with each other's stories, have space for candid conversations about adversity, and to bring in allies to learn more about how they can be supportive. 90% of organizations, including Meta, have ERGs, and they're not expected to dissolve. Now, Bobby, how can Meta continue utilizing partnerships for DEI?
Meta can also continue utilizing partnerships with community organizations. For example, participating in indices like the Human Rights Campaign is not illegal, and Meta is expected to continue partnering with organizations that uphold values that align with their recently axed DEI policies. So, while the headline may be scary to some, the truth is that if Meta is the ethical company it claims to be, they will always continue to promote equality and inclusion, just in more subtle ways.
Thank you, Bobby. Do you agree with the corporate response? How do you think DEI will change in Meta? Gavin, what do you think?
I really do think Trump is overstepping, and these new policies infringe on the availability of equal opportunity within the hiring sphere. Also, the fact that Meta is complying really speaks to the possible future corruption within Meta's leadership. Parley, you want to add anything?
Overall, I agree that Trump has overstepped, but I understand that Meta would want to make adjustments to align themselves with changes in the government to protect themselves and maybe curry favor with the president. But I think that their actions also set an example for many other large companies to roll back DEI policies, which could negatively impact the opportunities of minorities who are systematically excluded in the long run. Bobby, what do you think?
Well, with Meta's decision to remove DEI programs, the company does reduce potential legal challenges as their focus on accessibility and engagement could be framed as an effort to fairness for their employees. However, from a social standpoint, the removal of DEI efforts could slow progress in representation and inclusion, which could negatively impact the company's path to diversity. Catherine, what are your opinions?
While I recognize the negative effects of Trump's executive order and Meta's evolving principles to align with the shifting landscape, I honestly believe that this change will benefit not only the company itself, but the people that they serve. While Meta will no longer be prioritizing DEI in their hiring process, they'll be focusing on taking people with the most talent and skills, which in itself will create a stronger and more diverse workplace and a more connected community. And that's really what's important here.
All great points, everybody. Well, that wraps up the Mastercast. You've heard a lot from us, so we would love to know your opinion. How do you feel about Meta's DEI changes?
To collect information for this podcast, we use sources from Meta, Axios, BBC, ESG, ACLU, Time Magazine, CBS, Diversity.com, Reuters, and Bloomberg. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you in the next one.